Welcome to more political chatter, everyone. This 2024 election prediction will be between Senator Ted Cruz from the state of Texas versus Joe Biden, who's the incoming president. Now, Joe Biden, as you likely know, is extremely unpopular right now. Most people just believe that he hasn't been doing a good job. I mean, there's with the supply chain crisis, everything, really. He's just becoming more and more unpopular. Well, that's not necessarily true. He was very unpopular. He's regaining a little bit of ground, but really he still is underwater. But Ted Cruz is also pretty unpopular. Ted Cruz is seen as one of the most right-wing members of the United States Senate. Hugely unpopular among Democrats. He almost lost his re-election bid in 2018 to Beto O'Rourke, right? So, but both these candidates are unpopular, but but Cruz versus Biden, Cruz will have the upper hand just because Joe Biden will be a bit more unpopular than Ted Cruz is himself. So Biden would carry on states like California, Oregon. Well, actually, let me change the map here to 2024. Sorry about that. Here we go. But anyway. As I was saying, I will not be doing districting. I will. I've changed my mind. I will do what do you call it? Not districting, like solid, whatever. Anyway. Sorry about that, guys. That took a little bit. But, alright, so Biden would make states like California, Washington, Maryland, D.C., Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, not New Hampshire, sorry. Really, I do think that these would stay Democratic. I think Oregon would narrowly be likely. Biden would still probably carry it by 14%. So likely means, solid means 15% or higher margins. Likely means 5 to 15%. Lean means 1 to 5%, and tilt is below 1%, right? So, let's get into it. Sorry, that took a little bit. Illinois, I think, would stay in that solid column, along with Hawaii, one of the most democratic states in the country. Then Ted Cruz is going to win states like Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Indiana, West Virginia. These will be solid for him, along with Nebraska at large, along with Nebraska's first and Nebraska's third. Alright, here we have the electoral map. States that will be very much or overwhelmingly for the Republicans, but will be in that likely column. They're going to be states like Alaska. It's not going to be solidly. It's going to be less than 15%. But a state like this really won't change. Along with a state like Ohio. Saying how little is shifted away from Trump in 2020, it really shows that it can go very right-wing. However, I do think Ted Cruz would do worse here than Trump did in 2020. And that goes for Iowa, too. Because Trump had more of an appeal here. And I will give Iowa to Ted Cruz in that lean column just because Biden is so unpopular. Donald Trump had some strange appeal here. He really appealed to people, to white middle class voters in states like Iowa and Ohio. These blue-collar workers, these hard workers who were kind of annoyed with the Obama administration. He really won these over. Ted Cruz won't do exactly that. He won't have that appeal. However, because of Biden's unpopularity, Ted Cruz will still be able to carry these states, even though these were Obama states in 2012 and 2008. But Iowa, I do think, would be in that lean column. Ohio, I think, would just be over 5% margin for Cruz, right? Texas, I think, would go to Ted Cruz. Sure, he narrowly won re-election here. But still, it is his home state, and it's not like Biden comes from here either. Beto O'Rourke was very little known, and he managed to make a huge comeback in here, right? Managed to do very well. That's almost like coming from a different state, It's almost like coming from a different state and being unknown here, not being heard of, and still winning. He did very, very good, Beto O'Rourke. And sorry, I didn't categorize New York as safe for the Democrats, along with Maine's first and Maine at large. Maine at large, yeah, I think Maine at large would be likely for Biden. But anyway, But Texas, I do think would go to Ted Cruz by a likely margin. Um, I think it'd be very close to a lean margin. But but geez, with I'm going to change that to a lean margin. I really am. I was debating it this whole time, but I really will. It still doesn't matter. The electoral votes will go to Ted Cruz. I don't know. Biden won't turn out voters as much as Beto. We do have to remember that. Now Ted Cruz, I could see appealing to people in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. But these two states, Colorado and New Mexico, these will not change. You have more support in New Mexico, I believe, than Colorado. I think New Mexico would be lean. Colorado would be likely. These were both Hillary states in 2016, and they will not flip. Georgia, or I'm sorry, not Georgia. Virginia? Virginia, I think, would go to Biden by a likely margin, just over 5%. Because of this. Donald Trump, or I'm sorry, not Donald Trump, Glenn Youngkin won the governorship by distancing himself away from Trump. Well, Ted Cruz is not distanced from Trump. He is strongly affiliated with Trump, right? They work together. They are both extremely right wing, and you know, Virginia voters do not want an extremely right wing candidate, unlike Glenn Youngkin, right? So Virginia, I do think, would fall into that Democratic column by a likely margin. Nebraska second, I think, would go to Cruz by a lean margin. He does have some appeal here, probably, and mixed with Joe Biden's unpopularity. Okay, now we are, on to Maine second. This is going to be a Cruz district by a likely margin. This is not a district that is going anywhere. I think in later years, if the Democrats are popular, then they could potentially win this district. But as of right now, it is not switching. Maine second will stay in that Republican column. Now, New Hampshire, I don't really see flipping for a Republican such as Cruz. I think someone like, I'm not necessarily saying Mitt Romney, but someone who aligns more with Mitt Romney rather than Donald Trump, or should I say, rather than the right-wing party, or the right-wing faction of the Republican Party, right? So really, I think for someone who is extremely conservative like Ted Cruz, New Hampshire is not going anywhere. But of course, this is definitely an area where Biden's unpopularity will hurt him. This will not be solid. This will not be likely. I think this would be a lean win for Joe Biden here. Minnesota is another state like this. I definitely do not see it flipping for Ted Cruz. I think it could potentially flip in 2024 if Biden becomes a bit more unpopular. I think it could flip for, again, someone like who aligns more with Mitt Romney. But for someone like Ted Cruz, it's not going anywhere. Minnesota is going to go to Biden by a lean margin. Moving down to Arizona, this is an area where Biden's unpopularity is going to hurt him extremely. And Ted Cruz, I see really aligning and really appealing to voters in Arizona. I think this could be a state where Cruz does pretty well. I mean, we go back to John McCain and Mitt Romney, who won both of these, who both won Arizona by more than 10%. That's a pretty big margin. And they were both moderate Republicans, right? So Arizona aligns more with moderates, but really, I do see Arizona going to Cruz by a lean margin. I think it could almost be a likely margin, but it really won't be more than 5%, probably 4 to 5%, but not more than 5%. So, Cruz wins the state of Arizona. Nevada, I see Cruz winning here. I do think this would be a very close state, but Biden's unpopularity is really going to hurt him here again, this area. And again, it's very similar to Arizona. You know, he's hurting badly in this area, and Cruz has the appeal here. He has the upper hand in this area. This would be an extremely close race. I think Cruz would win by a tilt margin. Now we move down to Florida. A state like Florida, I think, is going to go to Cruz by a likely margin. They do not mind having a candidate who is extremely right wing. All Republicans in the state are extremely conservative, extremely Trumpian, and they want not necessarily Ted Cruz because he's pretty unlikable, but they want someone with the same political ideology as Ted Cruz. I do think Florida would go to the Republicans by a likely margin. Moving on to Georgia and North Carolina, I really do see Georgia especially Georgia, because we have leading voices like Stacey Abrams. We have like Stacey Abrams in Georgia, who's leading the Democrats, while we have Roy Cooper in North Carolina, who's leading the Democrats. Stacey Abrams is more outspoken against the Republicans, against the conservatives, against Donald Trump, much more than Roy Cooper, right? Roy Cooper is much more moderate, and it's easier for the Democrats to win in Georgia. But anyway, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I definitely see this as a state, and mostly because of Stacey Abrams, I really see this as a state that would reject Ted Cruz. I know it sounds kind of unreasonable, but I really do think that Stacey Abrams will get people out to vote for Joe Biden again in Georgia. I really do. It'd be extremely close, but I think Georgia will go to the Democrats. I think Georgia would go to the Democratic Party by a tilt margin. I think it would be even less than in 2020, their vote total. North Carolina, Stacey Abrams won in this prediction. She wins the Democrats Georgia, right? Roy Cooper is not as outspoken. I think North Carolina would stay in that Republican column. I think it's going to be by a lean margin. Voters will turn out for Ted Cruz more than Joe Biden. In Wisconsin, I think this would be a Cruz state, because this is a generally conservative state, right? And this is a state where Biden is extremely unpopular. So I do think Wisconsin would stay in that, not stay in that Republican column, would flip into the Republican column. I think Ted Cruz would win the state of Wisconsin. But moving on to Michigan, because of the large African American population, I really do think Michigan is going to be more of a Joe Biden state. I think Michigan will go to Biden probably by I would say a lean margin. It's going to go to Biden. Pennsylvania, I think Pennsylvania is going to be tilt either way. Because of how unlikable really Ted Cruz is. But in reality, Biden's unpopularity is just going to hurt him so bad, and Democrats will stay home. It's as simple as that. I think Ted Cruz would be able to carry the state of Pennsylvania, and thus the presidency. Ted Cruz wins the presidency with 282 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 256. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe. The subscribe circle button with my logo, whatever, will come up on the screen right after this. Please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you all for the next video.